What do you think?
Brenda, I remember when you owned a couple of fabulous wine shops, and I know it was hard for you when those things ended. You don't really talk about it anymore.
Yeah, that was a really, really hard time, but at some point I just had to choose to get a new story. And that's what we're going to talk about today on Find Your Lady Tribe. So welcome.
Welcome to Find Your Lady Tribe. My name is Brenda,
And I am Michelle.
and it's our mission to build a community of lady tribes, a place to connect and grow your tribe with resources, ideas, workshops, retreats, and events. We invite you to join our inner circle and become a tribe leader. It's free!
Each week, we will start a conversation about connecting within your tribe and across all of our tribes. Our goal is to create 1,000 new lady tribes in 2022. And each episode will challenge you with a call to action. The first one is to join our inner circle. Go to tinyurl.com/myladytribe. And as a gratitude gift, we will send you a downloadable copy of Chapter 1 of Lady and the Tribe, The Awakening.
Yay! So please subscribe to be notified of a new episode each week.
Welcome back.
We all have those fabulous stories that we've been telling for years and years and years, and it's usually our go-to when we're learning a new person or a new friend group, and we sort of rely on telling our same old stories, the ones that make us look really glorious or
Or
brilliant.
sometimes it's the other way around, right? Sometimes don't we tell the bad stories and kind of live there?
Yep, sometimes too. And either way, whether it's a good story or it's a bad story, living in the past and repeating the same old messages really doesn't necessarily serve us in our current state or in looking forward to a new or a brighter future, right? Like, I don't know, thinking of Napoleon Dynamite, where Uncle had that same old football story about how he won the game, and he never really progressed past that point in his life. And some of us and some of our friends are still holding to some of those same old stories. And so today we want to talk about what it takes to get a new story or rewrite your own story.
Right, because we didn't want to have peak in high school or peak anytime. We don't want to ever peak. We just want to continue.
Right. Or it could be one of those stories that you don't really feel like talking about or repeating. I get asked about a cancer story or maybe whatever happened with that business that failed or that marriage that failed. And there's no use in living in the past when what we have going on right now is so good.
Especially if it doesn't feel good.
Right.
If that memory and takes you back to a place where it just haunts you in a way.
Or it just no longer serves you.
Right.
And that's really what it's all about. If we're really trying to tune in at a spiritual level or an intellectual level at what's coming to us now and reinventing ourselves for what we want to become in the future, the first thing to writing that new story is getting rid of the old one.
Completely getting rid of it?
Well, tweaking it, but let's honor it and respect it. Only if we're living in the past where it's an obstacle to us, if we are victimizing ourselves over and over again, or sometimes we are glamorizing it, but anything that's negative or unpleasant or dramatic or puts us in that bad place is taking away from us receiving our divine guidance in the now.
Right.
Yes?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There's a time, you asked me about my wine shop experience, and yeah, it was a really, it's kind of who I was for about 10 years. I was a wine shop owner, and it was, had its ups and downs, and I wouldn't ever do it differently. But there was a point in time when it definitely when it ended, and during the Great Recession,
Mhm.
it felt like a huge failure. It was probably the biggest failure that I've ever experienced, financially and, being married to my business partner. It was hard for our family,
Yes.
and just, my ego and my pride, having something that was so awesome, kind of just fall apart. I totally took that as a, personal failure for sure. And it held me back for a while. And there was a point when I had to say that is not me, and that is not my story anymore.
Right, exactly. So you've moved on from that story. And, in a lot of cases, some of what is in our stories is not ours. In many cases, it's things that we've inherited from our parents, possibly, or a label that we've put on ourselves when we were fulfilling that role or attaching our identity. Like to
Mm-hmm.
me, what seemed like a failed marriage, it was a story that just doesn't need to be told anymore, lest it drag me back to that place when I wasn't at my best.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, getting rid of those labels: business failure, marriage failure, cancer survivor, getting rid of those labels, or the boxes that we put ourselves in back then, are really the first step to writing our new story.
Right.
So let's talk about what are some of the parts of our own stories that we hold on to because they make us look good. They glamorize us. So, do you have any examples
Um,
of stories that you retell because your ego likes them?
well, my ego likes to share that I'm a hiker and I've hiked 8 14ers and I've got more on the books, but I haven't hiked a 14er in like 3 years now. Just been too busy. I don't know what, but haven't made it a priority. But I'm still a 14er hiker. And so is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's something that kind of glamorizes. I have had a habit of glamorizing my career. Like I needed to, when I would talk about who I was or tell my story to new people that I met, I'd always get in that, corporate ladder steps that I had accomplished somehow, because it it somehow was part of my identity, and I felt like any new person or friend or whatever who came into my life needed to understand my career prowess somehow. And
You is important.
you is powerful. Yeah, so we all have things, and parts of our story that we hold on to and we glamorize, while we don't quite tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth about the ugly parts of our story. And that's because to say say negative things about ourselves doesn't really help us. But I do promise you, if we don't say them and we don't own them, there'll be somebody somewhere who's telling the same story with all the negatives and none of the glamour.
About us?
Oh, probably my ex-husband. Yeah, right. In those kind of situations, or maybe somebody that I worked with, it was like, she would know that.
Yeah, like
when
different
I worked
perspective
with
here,
her, right? Different perspectives. So to change our story and to get ourselves a new one, we have to look at those parts of the stories, the glamorous ones and the not so glamorous ones as well.
Well, do you have a strategy for us then to kind of figure out how to? Because I don't know how to get rid of my history.
That's true. We have to honor our history. We don't have to unwrite it, but we don't also have to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to repeat it to ourselves, and we don't have to repeat it to others. There's something to be said about manifesting or repeating our same mistakes because we didn't get the lessons from them, right? We all have sort of that friend who keeps making the same mistake over and over again. And I mean, of course, we're still there for her when she calls in another emergency in the middle of the night, or with another breakup from the same boyfriend time and time again. So yeah, it's really important to have our new truth emerge by letting go of some of our past stories.
Yeah. So how do we do that?
Okay. First, best way, we have to choose to become really curious about what's coming in as our next chapter, as our next story to be written. And ask ourselves some questions about the possibilities of, what does God want to show me today? What is my present?
Yeah, who am I going to be when I grow up?
Right. And
that's fun.
And I'm not grown up yet.
No,
I get to take on what's coming. And I love that idea. A great mentor friend of mine shared with me the idea that I wasn't very curious, that I basically seemed to have my mind all made up and that it couldn't change, that there couldn't be any other way. I felt it was being a little bit unteachable. And she connected the dots for me, was that if you would change your thought to just being curious about seeing it different, learning more, it doesn't have to just be that way. It's not black or white. Getting curious about what's coming is actually kind of an art that we weren't trained for, and we don't continue to develop as a skill going forward. So
I've heard it said, and this is, I'm not sure who quoted it, but it's what we already know is one of the biggest barriers to learning new things, is because we set ourselves in, oh, I've heard this before, I've done that before, I've seen this before. So you close off and you don't come into it with a learner's mindset or a fresh mindset or curiosity.
Exactly.
And that's a great challenge to enter into new things with or even repeated things with a new mindset, a learning
curiosity, like a kid, or like a cat, right? Who's always getting into something and taking a look. So it just tells your brain that you don't already know what your next chapter is going to be based on the first half of the novel. And getting curious will let you explore a little bit more into places and people and ideas that you couldn't know. So if I approach it as from that perspective of, I'm just here to be curious. And I remember asking her, well, how am I supposed to act? Like, is it a look on my face? Do I look curious now? And she said, start with just saying, I'm curious. And then pose a question and wait for the answer. Instead of appearing so closed to, I already know the answer to this, I don't even have to ask. And so it's really helped me in a lot of things to just interject the words, I'm curious. Then ask a question and listen to what a person might give you as the answer. And that person might be yourself when it comes to your own new story or your new future. Like, Brenda, I'm curious. How do you see me changing in the next 3 months? What do you see that I need to do or change in the next 3 months?
Wow. How long you got?
I love it. Right? But I bet you could come up with some answers because I actually gave you an in
Right.
to give me
Right.
something good or something feedback. So
Right.
get curious about what's coming next and what should be the part about your story. And another tip is that if you find yourself repeating your old story as your way to get that same old, validation or even feed your own same negative thoughts that happen when you tell that story, then stop yourself, or you stop me,
Mm-hmm.
and tell yourself, remind your friend, that's the old story of me.
Yeah, and I think that you touched on something pretty important. Your feelings, when you notice your feelings, that is, and it's not going in the right direction, that should be your first clue that that's a story that needs to time out for
Yes.
good.
Just stop. That's the old story of me. I've had friends that I'll get back together with after not seeing them for a really long time, and they will, in just trying to get to know me again, they'll say, well, whatever happened with this job or that boyfriend or whatever story they are wanting me to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And to just be able to say, that is a tired story. I don't tell it anymore. Let's talk about my next story.
Yeah.
And
yes.
that gives us something much more exciting.
Yes.
Honestly, because that's the thing that we actually can work on together
Right.
to create.
Right. That is so true. When you meet up with old friends, and this happens with me and my husband all the time. When we're getting together with friends that were in like kids sports together, the same flipping stories come up every single time because we try to see them once a year, and I'm like, really? I'm sitting with the girlfriend going, they're telling the story again, and
get a new
story. But they're having a good time though. I think they're in a good place. But if you have history with people that know your tougher stories, this old story, that's a great strategy to say, that's tired. I love that. That's a great tool. Let's talk about what I'm excited about. What's new and exciting for me. So I love that. So what else you got?
Okay, let's talk about my next story, because with that decision, just in our own mind, the energy shifts immediately. It's like closed door, closed chapter, finished with that, done with that, let's move on. And it's easier with that noise behind you to hear whatever your new guidance or your new idea, your new creative things coming in want to be for you. So also, that's what lets you look forward to being that person that you really want to be. Most of us, maybe other than going back to my high school weight, most of us don't really want to go back to any point before now in our life and relive it in exchange for, for what we have to look forward to in our future.
That is so true, because you think, when you fear getting older, kind of. I mean, we all have moments, right, of fear, all this, or, it's important to make the most of now. But I think it gives us all hope, and gives all our younger listeners and viewers hope that we don't want to go back.
Nope, been there.
It was great. It was fun. We had a good time, but it's future focused, baby, and we're like, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's just getting better and better.
Yeah, and we just get to own it. Also, if you stop the old conversation, you get to experience the love and the support and the new things, the new miracles that are coming into your world or your life now. If I tell you my new dream instead of my old crushed dream, it allows my friends to be able to support me in what's happening now. Right. Because what happened 10 years ago really doesn't matter. And we still need something to connect over and support each other with. those moments of decisions when you catch yourself are pretty much, those are like the validating your intuition is coming to you. So when you catch yourself, know that's a moment where you can ask for divine guidance, where some new message is going to come in when you catch yourself saying that old story. And then find, just identify that those old tapes, those old labels, one by one in those moments, and eliminate them. I know we can pick these out for our friends when they do it to us. Like I was telling you about listening to an old friend who was telling me her story again, but I was there. Like she's telling it and glamorizing it and doing what it takes to get her reaction and her feel goods out of her old past story. But I was actually there. She didn't need to tell me the story. And besides that, like the Little League, I'd heard it 10 or 15 years in a row over time. So notice those moments, call them out for yourself, and eliminate them right in the moment, so that is the time that your own intuition can come in and you can change and do something different.
Should we do that for our tribe? Should we point those things out, or would that like create hard feelings?
With permission, and really among good friends that are helping each other out, once you experience the relief of somebody, a friend especially, letting you off the hook for that old story, there may or may not be a apology or a forgiveness or something that's required in there. But to be honest, the person may not have cared about the story near as much as they cared about you. And so changing your story going forward actually is something I think we should ask our tribe to help us do. And
right. So if I hear one of my wonderful friends kind of stuck in a cycle of conversation, I should lovingly say, "Hey, how does that feel? When we're talking about that, and is that really, the feelings that you want to bring into the present, because that was ancient history."
Yeah, that was a long time ago. And does it still make you feel as good now as it did then? What are you doing now?
Or bad.
Yeah, or bad. That's where I find it is the ones who are stuck in a story that makes them feel bad. They're the ones who really need to get a new story, for so many reasons. And remember, the story that we tell ourselves over and over again is as possible, make as much of a possibility as it could be limiting as well. So definitely help a girl out if you find that, and I don't mean your anecdote stories, I mean your self-defining stories, right? When they no longer serve you,
right?
You can definitely help us out. And that's actually what our call to action and sort of homework assignment is going to be for this episode, which is to get a new story. You're going to have to get rid of the old ones. So here's what we're going to ask each of you to do with your old story.
Step 1.
First one, write it as thoroughly and as dramatically as you can.
Write your story out.
Write it out.
Journal it.
And if you're not a writer, get your video camera and turn it on yourself and tell it to yourself, right? But tell the whole story. Just put it out there. And then when you have it written out, you're going to share it. You're going to tell it to somebody. Again, share it with a friend. Put it in writing. Take your writing or your video and share it.
So step 2 is to share it. And would that be showing, letting them read it? Okay, no. So telling it.
Write it.
Thank you, not sharing.
Tell it.
Okay.
And then third step, and if you don't have anybody to tell it to yourself in the mirror. Listen to yourself. And the third step is embellish it. right? Put in all those extra things that you normally do that give you the reactions that you're looking for. If they're the feel goods, feel them. If they're the feel bads, feel them. And after you've written it, told it, embellished it, then let it go. Just respect it, appreciate it, and step into your present moment. You've gotten it out, you've said it enough, it's done, and you can let it go. And that is what allows you to start writing your new story.
Yeah, all of your power is in the now. All of our power. And we have so much power. And we do not want to waste 1 ounce of it on reliving the past, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. We want to just take each step in joy, take each step forward, 1 step at a time. We don't need to we kind of have an idea where we want to go. We don't need to know how to do everything. We just take the next logical step in joy. So love it. Those were great tips, Michelle.
Awesome. Yeah. So when 3 or more gather,
we are tribe.
Thank you so much for joining us today for Find Your Lady Tribe. Would you do us a favor and hit that like button and add a comment? It'll really help us grow.
Better yet, find the share arrow and share out to your tribe. Join us again next week on YouTube or your favorite podcast service.